At Champions 2022, Yoru continued to barely be picked, with a few teams trying to do their best to implement it, but the only really winning team was Paper Rex's Bind Yoru. That has now changed.
What is happening? Wait, G2 are so selfish. I'm like, don't look at them, and this is what they do.
This implementation of Yoru was so creative, I had to share it and I had to do a deep dive because it kind of showed what playing against Yoru would be like if you couldn't hear him teleport. Literally right from the pistol round, G2 does not mess around. Juliana immediately sends her TP, which will land all the way back in backhaul. The really important part is that you see Juliana rush to get back in towards with the hit on A so that she could be seen. If there were defenders here from Cloud9, they'd see the flash potentially falling back from Art and they'd know, okay, Yoru's part of this hit, and that'd be in their minds because they'd see everybody else. So it's really important that she joins this hit, throws her flash, and then also the timing that she goes for this is right after the plant goes down. She waits a couple of seconds and then TPs. And that's because that's the most common timing for players to rotate, is finally when that spike is heard, the last final anchor of the B site is going to start running off. And that's exactly what happens. And then eventually there's this kind of really neat detail where Petra and Mary can go into secret specifically to delay as long as possible for this Juliana flank, and it does pay off, right? Because Juliana comes in and backstabs Mel, Petra's able to rejoin, and they should be able to clean up this round with the space that they have pretty convincingly. Skipping ahead to round 5, immediately Juliana throws the same TP that will end up into backhaul. Again, she goes to join Petra. You could see the idea right off the rip of this round where 3 players are sat inside of Club. I think this was one of the most replayed rounds probably of the Game Changers tournament, because this is what happens, right? Petra is continuing to pressure. She's holding B main, and then Juliana comes through and ults and provides so much pressure on the Cloud9 players. Look how scared they are, backstepping all the way through. And then she comes out of this, and it's all a fake. But the detail here that I think is really important here for G2 is this Nightfall coming through. This is the first idea of doubt creeping into Cloud9's heads about, oh my goodness, this is actually really dangerous. If this Nightfall came in seconds before, we would have had no clue what was happening on the site. Look at all the space that is actually owned by G2 at this point. Cloud9 literally has nothing in space related to the B site that's important. Really, really good round. Okay, this round starts a little bit more as a default from G2. You have 3 players watching A main to try to hold off of any Cloud9 pushes because they'll need this space later to start their execute. And then you also have a little bit of pressure coming out towards B long with Petra and Juliana. While that's happening, Juliana sends her TP out again to go all the way back hall, but they know there's a lot of players of Cloud9 all the way up. And the successful thing here, even though they lost Mary, was they pushed Mel off, right? So they can get into space where they can execute. Meanwhile, by the way, I mentioned the TP going through, but look at where it ends up going. And this is actually key. Cloud9 has seen this so many times, they start to get kind of frustrated by this back hall TP, and immediately Bob just killed it as soon as it landed. And that gives Juliana the opportunity to go for her next lineup, and Mel's left all alone to fend off the Nightfall Yoru combination, which in this round proves to be absolutely deadly. She's deafened at this point. She can't hear anything. The Yoru literally TPs where you can see her on the screen as observers through the wall, and the rotates are just nowhere near fast enough as this Nightfall comes up to hear her. So Juliana gets a free backstab on Mel, who couldn't hear her, and she escapes. But what if I told you guys that there were more layers to this type of combination? So we're in the grand finals now, the first map of the grand finals, where G2 pulled out this Yoru comp again. And sure, the Cloud9 game had basically been watched from Shopify, so G2 let up on a little bit on some of the conditioning ideas that they were going for. For example, this long B TP at the beginning of the round and the cross TP. However, we still have this combination that is so deadly up right now and available. The Nightfall and obviously Yoru TP. And look, she throws it into spawn. And surprisingly, Sunder actually doesn't see it, because as this happens, Mary gets the kill on the Flowerful. So Flowerful's coming, and that's the time that Sunder rotates out. So she doesn't notice the TP actually going into spawn. But you actually see Petra's nowhere near this hit right now, nowhere near where Juliana is. What other ability can actually block sound that they have available to them? Yes, Glance has her Cosmic Divide. So they're able to use this potentially to block it through, but the timing is slightly off. As you can see, the Astral Ball comes out right after Juliana actually calls a TP. So this doesn't quite work And I think it's because a lot of this was somewhat on the fly. They were going off a default. They got a pick over here. The players wanted to kind of walk into sight as well. There's a lot going on in this round. And I still think my favorite part about this is how, when you look at this, even though Juliano's dead at this point, you see the Nightfall go through here and you already know Shopify's thinking, okay, they might try to TP on A with the defens that are going off. That's kind of what they're preparing for rather than the Cosmic Divide. There's so many different levels here of doubt that's in Shopify's mind or any team that plays against this Yoru comp, which I find super, super cool. So this round does show a little bit actually going back into the game. You see the decoy being put down over towards A, while actually the hit is going to be coming on to B relatively fast. And it's because G2 has decided, okay, if we actually smoke this, while we're doing this hit, we can provide a level of uncertainty to what's going on for the player who's playing backhaul. They don't necessarily want to commit to going close to it, especially with slows, especially with flashes that could come in on it. Benita does a really nice thing to smoke on top of it as well, so she can actually go and clear it. But Juliano can fake that TP. She could actually take the TP. There's a lot of different things that could happen there. And then this is the really cool part, even though it's an anti-eco. The longer you play against the Yoru, the longer you watch how the Yorus play, the more you kind of think, okay, we just got to kill it. But in this 2v3 or 2v4 situation, actually, the information that you get from the Yoru TP breaking is kind of huge. Flowerful gives up her position by breaking the TP, which is not something that you normally would consider. Okay, let's look at one more example of how G2 uses multi-pronged pressure to find a place where the Yoru TP will go unseen and unheard. Now, you also have a main pressure going on, and you also have a little bit of B-Link pressure that Petra was doing a fantastic job at actually just breaking the trip by herself. The pressure that it provides as they push Flowerful off, Petra gets the kill here, and Shopify want to kill her, so it actually pulls Flowerful off again into B-Link, and this is when the TP slips through the net, basically for free. And this is when you easily can call a bunch of different audibles. You can go back towards A at this point. You can have Juliana come back and flank Flowerful. You could do whatever you want at this point. You have free reign to pull the rotations in such a way that allows these gaps to be made. It's not something that can be done on every map, and I think that's one of the reasons why everybody is having difficulty implementing Yoru in general. So very, very nice. Here's a bonus clip, something that completely has nothing to do with Yoru, but it's so freaking cool. It's G2 on this retake on the B site, using their Sage Wall as an anti-grav wall in a 3 versus 5 situation. She puts it in such a way that the grav wall is going to push her into the wall, but not far enough to get away from the spike. Mimi does a great job actually getting off and on the spike when there's so many players close to the smoke, but they clean up kills. It's now a 2 versus 3, and that grav wall is going off right now, and she's not able to get off. It's still going off to add insult to injury. Such a little cool micro play there. So these rounds that I've shown you are examples of really powerful gimmicks, almost cheesy strats with Yoru, but they're so cool when you really don't see these strats or ideas outside of ranked at all. With a little bit more practice on the execution and the timing of things, they could be a little bit more than cheesy with the high level mind games and ridiculous number of variations that you can have with the Astral Wall, with the Nightfall, with the Seas as well. There's just so many different things that G2 showed, and you can see the possibilities.